There is no one scorecard for determining who won and who lost last night, but a consensus does seem to be emerging. Ross Perot, the star of the night, partly because no one knew what to expect. Bill Clinton, just good enough. And President Bush, he'll have to do much better.
It was October 1992. George H.W. Bush, Poppy Bush, was president. He was running for re-election. And at the first presidential debate that year, he absolutely bombed. If that Tom Brokaw stand-up was not enough to convince you, check out the headline in the Boston Herald the next day. Bush strikes out. A Snap poll taken after the debate found the percentage of voters who thought President Bush had won the debate was in the teens. It was 18%. That first debate went very terribly for Poppy Bush. And indeed, he went on to lose his effort to be reelected in 1992. But look at the rest of the data here. The first debate also went terribly for Poppy Bush's son in 2004 when he was looking for a second term, running for re-election against John Kerry. Reviews of his first debate performance were just as brutal as the ones had been for his dad. Like this one from The Atlantic, quote, "That was George Bush's worst performance in a debate by far ever. My mantra had been that neither Bush nor Kerry had ever lost a debate. That is no longer true." George W. Bush's approval rating a week before that debate was as high as 54%. After his terrible performance in that first debate, it dropped 7 points just from that one debate. But of course, he went on to win re-election anyway in 2004. Then there was what happened to President Obama in 2012. Again, looking for a second term, running for re-election up against his opponent, Mitt Romney. The first debate that year, a disaster for the incumbent president. The headlines were unanimous. Obama snoozes and loses. Romney was hungry. Obama was flat. Mitt Romney comes out on top as Obama stumbles in first debate. Obama had a 9-point lead in the polls in September 2012. After his terrible performance in October, he ended up tied with Romney in the polls. But then Obama won election in November and got a second term. Regardless of the eventual electoral outcome, it is almost an axiom of politics that first debates are rocky for incumbent presidents. Now, why is that? What is it about being an incumbent president that makes you suck at your first debate when you're running for re-election? I don't know. Lots of competing explanations out there, but it does seem to be something that universally holds. I will also mention that Donald Trump was no exception. When he was the incumbent 4 years ago, not that long ago, I'm sure you remember how that went for him. But I think this headline at The Guardian sums it up well. This was after the first debate with Donald Trump as the incumbent and Joe Biden as the challenger. Quote, "Donald Trump ensures first presidential debate is national humiliation." It's always the case. And tonight, Joe Biden was the 9th incumbent president in a televised general election debate. He and his team very, very, very much wanted to defy the debating incumbent curse. They did not defy the debating incumbent curse. That said, losing the first debate is not a fatal thing for incumbent presidents. It is a historical certainty that they lose the first debate. But in terms of its overall electoral impact, history says, meh. Joining us now is former Republican Party chairman, the co-host of The Weekend here on MSNBC, our beloved friend, Michael Steele. Mr. Steele, it is great to see you.
How are you doing, my friend? What a night. Everybody rested and raring to go, right?
We are hydrated. We did our weird yoga poses that make our backs hurt less when we sit here for 6 hours at a time. We're great. What did you think of the debate, and what have you been hearing from people tonight who saw it?
So I have thoughts, and I'll start with where you left off. Everything you said about those other presidential debates is absolutely 100% correct. But what you did not have after them was the incumbent president's party openly musing about taking him off the ticket. And I think that is something that is very different in this one. Tonight, you have MAGA gloating and Democrats outwardly worrying about the state of the race, to the point that they are not hiding their discussions about how they get Joe off the ticket. I think a lot of that is unfortunate. I think a lot of that is overblown at the moment, but I get the emotion. I thought Claire was an exhibit of that emotion, of that gut punch that she referenced, that a lot of Democrats are feeling. But here are a couple of things that I think need to be focused on, just kind of putting my sort of campaign party hat on and sort of rally the troops and get your ass in gear conversation. One is Nicole said it best. Own tonight. Don't pretend it was something it wasn't. Sit down with Joe, play that tape, play it, and slow-mo that sucker if you have to get him to appreciate exactly what it was we saw and how he performed and how in many respects he let himself down. Because if any of us know the president, and a lot of us do, have seen him over these many, many years, we know how much he regards being honest about that. So let him be honest about that and have that assessment and take him out of situations where he's seemingly lying about his performance. He will endear himself. He will move people to appreciate a lot of things about him if he owns the moment. I thought, for example, Lawrence was also very clear in how this thing needs to get laid out. Again, don't overthink what happened. Rethink how you move forward. Reimagine what tomorrow looks like. And by tomorrow, I mean Morning Joe tomorrow. All right. And really begin to put in place the next set of building blocks. Because right now, MAGA's on the run. They got this, baby. You should see and hear the stuff that's coming up, right? They are primed. They're ready. They're like, we told you this is what he was. Joe Biden is old and out of date. Donald Trump is the man. All of that crazy. But Donald Trump is a serial liar. He's a petulant little boy in a man's orange suit, right? And he sits here and he tells lie after lie after lie after lie. Joe Biden, to Jen Psaki's point, was not prepared to deal with that. And he was ill prepared because he was fed numbers instead of doing what I've said from the very beginning of the day. I was on Morning Joe and said Joe Biden would be the nominee of the Democratic Party because Joe Biden is his best when he is Joe Biden. And they forgot that. His campaign forgot that. They put that cocoon around him as president and they fact him up with all these facts and numbers, and the man got lost. So there's some things that are recoverable here, but they have to first start to own the moment. And you don't really kind of do that by pushing the vice president out there. I think the president at some point has to look America in the eye and go, I'm sorry I let you down. I should have been better prepared. And you know me better than that, and that's not how my parents raised me. And that's not how I'm going to lead you. And I think that moment sort of takes what happened with Donald Trump, because guess what then, Rachel? All of a sudden, all the stuff that we're not talking about that we heard and saw with Donald Trump kind of comes back and refocus. Begins to be, people begin to look at it and go, yeah, now that I think about it, Donald Trump said some crazy behind stuff, right? So I think that Democrats need to, bring it down. Stop the, let me tell you what I'm hearing from operatives and others, and just reset.
Michael Steele, tough love. We always get tough love from you, Michael. Thank you so much.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow.
The question was, will you accept the results of the election, regardless of who wins? Yes or no, please.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these in a week.
Now that the first presidential debate has concluded between President Biden and Donald Trump, my assessment is, on the one hand, you had Donald Trump, a ranting, raving lunatic who lied throughout the entire thing. And on the other hand, you had President Biden, who missed many major opportunities, who significantly underperformed and frankly failed to show up. There were some moments where President Biden pushed back, but overall, while President Biden told the truth and tried to answer the questions to the best of his ability, he did not nail the moments that he could have. I think that's an understatement. But meanwhile, if you were watching Donald Trump, I don't think that instilled confidence. I mean, he seemed like a ranting and raving lunatic. My overall assessment right now is I'm not in a panic mode. I'm certainly, disappointed that there were missed opportunities by President Biden. If you saw the live stream that we did, you'll get my more fulsome recap. But I want to just show some, I think, critical moments where, for me, we can talk about how the individuals performed from a optics standpoint. And don't get me wrong, optics are important, but I think the American people also care about substance and facts and our democracy and values. And I think they recognize that someone who's ranting and raving like Donald Trump did versus President Biden, I think, who was certainly struggling to answer the questions, but did so nonetheless with honesty and attempting to actually answer the questions. I think people can see the distinction for themselves. So take a look right here. This is one moment where Donald Trump talks about not having sex with a porn star. Play this clip.
Give you a minute, sir.
I didn't have sex with a porn star, number one. Number two, that was a
And that's despite the fact that Donald Trump was just convicted on 34 separate felony counts of falsifying business records related to that. Then there was this question. Will you accept the results of the election, which we played at the beginning of this clip, and Donald Trump refused to answer that question. Let's play it.
The question was, will you accept the results of the election, regardless of who wins? Yes or no, please.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these in a week.
Donald Trump then claimed that everybody, every scholar, everybody wanted to overturn Roe v. Wade and turn the issue over to the states. Play the clip.
51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives, everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they...
On ending Roe v. Wade, Donald Trump says it was a great thing, and President Biden responds. Play the clip.
What happened is we brought it back to the states, and the country is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
Thank you. President Biden?
It's been a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact that
Then Donald Trump talked about January 6th, and he claims that on January 6th, he says there were some people who were just so innocent. Here, play this clip.
President Trump,
What they've done to some people that are so innocent, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down many other cities, you go to Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done there with the...
Donald Trump also claims that America was most respected in the world on January 6th. Play this clip.
On January 6th, we were respected all over the world. All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people.
This was one of the better lines from President Biden, where he said that the only person on the stage who's a convicted felon right now is Donald Trump. Play the clip.
And Democrats, all Democrats, they destroyed and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right. We were right. And they deleted and destroyed all of the information. They should go to jail for that. If a Republican did that, they'd go to jail.
thank you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute. The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now. And the fact of the matter is, what he's telling you is simply not true. The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on up in Capitol Hill. And all those people, every one of those who were convicted, deserves to be convicted.
And then President Biden asked Donald Trump, will you denounce the people who attacked the Capitol? Play this clip.
Said, will you denounce the Proud Boys? He said, no, I'll tell them to stand by. The idea he's refusing, will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? Will you denounce the people who attacked that Capitol? What are you going to do? I'm going to give you a...
Here's Donald Trump ranting and raving about saying that he hasn't done anything and then attacking President Biden and saying, I did nothing wrong, but Biden's the criminal. Play the clip.
He could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible things. All of the death caused at the border, telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion or you change the prosecutor. Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo. That we're not going to do anything. We're not going to give you $1 billion unless you change your prosecutor having to do with the son. This man is a criminal. This man, you're lucky. You're lucky. I did nothing wrong. We'd have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have
President Biden then talks about the source of where the inflation originally came from with Donald Trump's policies. Play this clip.
going on. But in inflation, he caused it by his tremendous malfeasance in the way he handled the pandemic.
Thank you. Another
And here you have President Biden talking about Donald Trump's competency. Play this clip.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
Let's turn to concerns that voters have about each of you. President Biden, you would be 86 at the end of your second term. How do you address concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
Well, first of all, I spent half my career being criticized being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think that just look at the record. Look at what I've done. Look how I've turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, more investment in America.
Trump then brags about passing a cognitive exam. Play this clip.
For President Trump to follow up, you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities to serve?
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And, you know, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter.
President Biden then talked about how not a single court in the country found in favor of Donald Trump when he tried to challenge the results of the 2020 election. Play this clip.
Again, no indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
Let's see what your numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed and appealed to courts all across the country. Not one single court in America said any of your claims had any merit, state or local, none. But you continue to provoke this lie about somehow there's all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There's no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner. The idea, if you lose again, you accept anything, you can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
And here President Biden talks about how the presidential historians who voted the list of top presidents found that Donald Trump was actually one of the worst, if not the worst, in all of American history. And you can see this got under Donald Trump's skin right here.
1. Number 2, the idea that we're talking about worst presidents. I wasn't joking. Look it up or go online. 159 or 58, don't hold me the exact number, presidential historians, they've had meetings and they voted who's the worst president in American history. 1 through best to worst. They said he was the worst in all of American history. That's a fact. That's not conjecture. He can argue they're wrong, but that's what they voted. Yeah.
You know, and again, I thought there was so many missed opportunities, though, here for President Biden when Donald Trump was talking about overturning Roe v. Wade. I think President Biden could have said, look, Donald Trump, and I want everybody to listen. What Donald Trump is saying is that he's okay with states tracking women's periods, arresting women's doctors, throwing women in jail, with the most extreme and draconian abortion restrictions that exist. I think President Biden could have talked about how Donald Trump sings songs with the January 6th insurrectionists and the most violent insurrectionists Donald Trump says he's going to pardon. I think President Biden could have mentioned that Donald Trump would trust Vladimir Putin over our intelligence agencies and would take us out of NATO. I think there was a lot of moments where President Biden could have pushed back. And look, I've heard lots of people talk about the moderators and say the moderators weren't great and the format wasn't great. I mean, if you watched the video that I did in the post-debate coverage, my view was, I don't really buy into all of that, just being totally blunt, that the moderator wasn't good. Or look, a skilled debater would push back on Donald Trump more forcefully on those points. I still think it's important that we focus on the substance of what was said. We focus on our democracy. We focus on the values that were being spoken and what President Biden was trying to actually talk about issues, while Donald Trump just spewing kind of nonstop lies. We're in June. We still have a lot of time to go. I think it is, important to also reflect on the fact that I don't think someone watching that Donald Trump endeared himself to independence. I also don't think that President Biden won over independence or won over people, with that. But, my view is that it certainly could have been a better performance from President Biden. I think that's an understatement. But we will keep you posted every step of the way. We'll evaluate all of the data here and go back and watch our full post-debate coverage where you can see everything that went down. And I think we had a very, honest and difficult conversation about what went down. It was not great. Nonetheless, President Biden, I think, decent, caring, compassionate, trying to tell the truth. Donald Trump totally lying, but the President Biden who needed to show up didn't show up. It's what it is. Hit subscribe.
All right, y'all. How's everyone doing out there? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of Wayne's Perspective, where we operate in discipline, decency, integrity, and respect. And fair uses for those videos, courtesy of MSNBC and Midas Touch. I just wanted to use both of those videos as a little bit of context before I get into my actual thoughts coming out of that debate between President Biden and Donald Trump from last night. So before I get to that, I hope everyone is doing okay, taking every day one day at a time as we prepare to exit June 2024 and head right into July 2024. The time is moving by fast, like it always does. It waits for no man, it waits for no woman. So with all that being said, I hope everyone is doing okay, taking every day one day at a time and living life the best way you know how. So, all right, so this debate. Now, before I get to the debate and some other talking points, I just wanted to make a couple of things clear. Now, I never wanted to see another debate between these two, especially after the ones that we got in 2020. Y'all remember how they were. That first one was a hot mess. The second one was a little bit better, but still, I never wanted to see another debate with them. Now, even though he's the presumptive nominee on the Republican side, and when you consider all of his baggage, political and otherwise, what is there to be gained by debating the likes of Donald Trump, especially considering that he's now a convicted criminal? Well, I guess you could say, everyone gets to see what he's about in real time. But the thing is, we've been seeing what he's been about since June 2015. Nothing has changed other than the fact that he's older. He's no spring chicken. He's more dangerous, and he will ramble at a moment's notice. And look, Biden is no spring chicken either. And as my mom would say, we talking about two grown-ass older men, okay? So neither one of them are spring chickens here. And I'm going to come back to the age factor in just a little bit, but I wanted to start off with that. Now, as for the debate itself, for starters, looking back on it in retrospect already, it was overhyped, in my opinion. Expectations were high for Biden. to knock one out of the political park while expectations were low for Trump, like they always are. That was no surprise. And secondly, overall, it was rough. Now, it's no surprise that Trump was Trump from start to finish. Plus, he came equipped with the L and BS. And what does L and BS stand for? Lies and bullshit, quite simply. Biden, he was not sharp, and he had some clear-cut missed opportunities to hit back at Trump. But to be clear and to be fair, he did clap back a few times. Now, furthermore, I know there have been concerns about Biden's age. Nobody is not denying that. But aside from the occasional gaffe, he has shown he can do the job. He's shown that to me, and I'm sure he's shown that to other people. And speaking of which, why is there little to no concern about Trump's age? There was little to no concern about his age back when he was in office, and that seems to be the case now. Now if you're going to be fair on both ends. Let's stop the selective fairness, and please don't give me the whole ordeal about, well, it's not that important because he's not president. I guarantee you, had he won a second term in 2020, would we be talking about his age? No. And I mean, the way people be talking, you think that Trump was 28 or 38 and not 78 or however old he is, but I digress. So let's stop the selective fairness here. Like I said, be fair on both ends. Don't just make it seem like, well, it's more notable and it's more essential because one person is president and the other person ain't. They two older men, okay, like I said. So continuing on. The next point I want to make is, okay, should Biden step down? Well, in a word, no. Granted, it was not one of his finest moments, and I'm sure he'll tell you that, debating or otherwise, but that's no reason for him to end his campaign cold turkey and head back to Scranton. Is there some self-reflection in order? I think so. A time to figure out what's wrong. Now, some people said that he may have had a cold last night. I mean, that's no excuse, but I guess everybody is entitled to an off night at some point, right? So, a time to figure out what went wrong, take it as a lesson learned, improve, and show the American public and the world that you're still capable of taking this into a second term. Because the reality is that if you show you're on the opposite side of getting the job done along with everything else that comes with being the president of the United States, the people are going to vote you out, even if the alternative is someone who should be nowhere near the White House, and resetting ultimately counts and begins on Inauguration Day 2025. Remember that, y'all. Moving on. Panic. Okay, the P word. I understand where it's coming from. I do understand that. But let's get a hold of ourselves here. One debate performance does not define the capabilities of a sitting president, nor will it make or break an election that's months away. And my view on the whole matter is that if we keep seeing performances like this heading into the election, that right there, it should be a cause for concern, especially if it's happening on a continuous basis for everybody to see. Now, in my view, again, that hasn't been the case since Biden's been in office. But if we continue to see that, then yeah, we're gonna need to have some additional talks about that, because that's not normal, especially for an incumbent president. That's my whole thing about that. So, I wasn't panicking, and I just looked at it the way that it should have been. No need for panic. It was a debate performance. It wasn't his best. You just move on from that. You focus on it. You don't try to hide what went on. You own up to it. And like I said before, take it as a lesson learned. You show improve and continue on. Do better next time, I guess. Next up, 2028. I'm thinking of this quote right now. Thinking ahead will get you ahead. And props to that episode from season 3 of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air for giving us that quote. Now, I may be one of the very few people that's already looking at 2028, the presidential election that is. So if Biden wins in November, I guarantee you that one or two things will happen. Number one, when it comes to the Democratic nominee, of course, he or she will have to do the traditional things and more to earn the nomination, but expect a big push for the candidate to be younger. I do see that happening. And number two, I also feel that there will be a concerted effort to elect a Republican with the let's see what he or she is going to do line of thinking. Y'all know how it goes. And history has shown what happens when a Republican is president, especially for 2 terms. And the Democrat successor will have to come clean up their messes and then some, as usual. We've seen it. We've seen it all throughout the years of history. Nothing is going to be different in that regard. So, I mean, at the end of the day, y'all, overall, my vote is not changing. You know, there's nothing, and I mean nothing out there that'll ever make me, quote unquote, stay home and vote the couch. These upcoming elections aren't jokes, and they shouldn't be treated as such. You know, I never sit out in an election, never, local, state, or federal. You know, now I think Biden will bounce back from this, and word has it that he's already refused any calls to step down and has already committed to a second debate with Trump. Well, I guess 1 out of 2 ain't bad. Besides, stepping down is not going to solve anything, you know, but the campaign has to know that the pressure is on across the board. And regarding the second debate, another less than satisfactory performance would not be a good look. You know, now, at the end of the day, y'all, the choice is clear to me. One man wants to finish the job. The other man wants to stay out of prison and will continue to care about no one but his damn self. You know, and we see that on full display every single day he's in the news about something. Let me repeat that. One man wants to finish the job. The other man wants to stay out of prison and will continue to care about no one but himself. And I ask you, who has the best interests of our country at heart and in mind? In my Nas voice, I think we all know the answer to that. And in the case of this unplanned live stream, we are done with this one. So let me know your thoughts here. Who did you think won? I mean, excuse me, who did you think won the debate? You know, excuse my verbal typos here. But who do you think was the victor and who do you think was the loser? You know, let me know what you think. You know, and when it comes to the second debate, do you want to see a second one? Who do you think is going to win that? Who do you think is going to lose? So either way, just let me know your thoughts on this one. So with all that being said, y'all, if you like what you heard and you're ready to become part of Team Discipline, go ahead and hit that like button and drop some comments if you're feeling the content. And last but not least, hit that subscribe button along with the bell so you're notified when I drop new videos. And until next time, my people, take care of yourselves. And remember, the power of the mind is valuable.